Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be sitting down to make an art journal page, which I need to do for a swap. Now I have been procrastinating over this swap for the last 2 to 3 weeks. I just don't know how I'm going to do it or what I'm doing. I finally needed to do it because the due date was like tomorrow. So I sat down and I started. So I've got a few prompts here, and it says prompt number 1 is start by making marks on that white paper. Scribble, use pencil, crayons, textures, ink, whatever you have at hand. This gives interesting marks that you can still see as the work develops. Then add some paint splotches to the page. Any paint will do. So I decided to go for my brushos. These, because I had nothing in mind, the brushos just gave me a pattern of their own. What I did was I started off by misting the paper. This is 210 GSM paper by Art Spectrum. I then added the 3 colors here, which are the blue, the purple, and the red, and I'll put the details on my blog, so please go ahead and check that out if you're interested in more details and colors. And whenever I use red, I always find that it looks like a bit of a murder scene, so I decided to take away some of that red color. And it actually looks really nice when it's removed. It looks nice and soft. And then I moved it around the page just a little bit to soften the colors, and I really like how that turned out. After the page was dry, I went for my distress crayons, and I'm using the yellow here, and I'm really loving that yellow. It looks like it's adding some nice color to the edges, and I'm finding that it's not too bad. I go for the green here, and I add it to the top there. The minute I add that wipe, it touches the purple and you don't see any green. I know that distress crayons do not come off, but I didn't try it with brushos, and so the minute the distress crayon hit the brush show, it reactivated it even though it was dry, and it created that smudge on the left. And I'm trying here to add the green on the to the top right hand side, and I'm really not liking it, so I put the green down. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to lift some of the brusho purple color there. I don't like that smudge on the left hand side. I do continue with the yellow just a little bit more, and then I put that away too. So the next thing I do is I reach for this punchinella stencil that I always use, and some gesso, and my palette knife. Now I try to do some pattern here, and I hate it straight away. I think that the gesso just goes underneath the stencil, and it's really doesn't do what I want it to do. So I pick up some of the gesso with a dry brush, and then I put it onto my mat first, and then I apply it to the page, which actually gives me a beautiful like punchinella pattern, which is what I was after. And basically I'm applying it to the areas where the 2 colors mix so that it looks like it's layered and more cohesive. Also breaking up the dark patterns at the very top there. That purple is so dark it looks almost metallic, and also breaking up some of the yellow from the distress crayon. And after a while I did notice that the brusho soaked up into the white of the gesso, so it took away the whiteness and the brightness, which I had to repeat a little later on. So the next thing that I have to do is prompt number 2, collage some different papers or small images or words from your collection. Use paint to soften the edges. And so at first I decided to use, this was just a tissue paper that I had a little bit of Happy Mail sent to me. It's a kind of a different color. It's like a really light green with pretty bird nests on it. So I added that down, and it seemed to take into the background really well, but I kind of really didn't see it. So then I added some book pages and cut them up in irregular sizes and added them on top, and I actually quite like how the 2 layer on each other, and they just start to give the background some more interest. And I'm slowly starting to see a pattern that I like. So the next thing I do is just soften up the edges of those papers that I've just put down, once again with my brush and a little bit of gesso. I'm trying to keep the brush really light and not so full of gesso, so I'm tapping it on my work mat. And I'm also trying to just recede some of those colors into the background. They're so vibrant, brush strokes are beautiful. And I did put a lot of that yellow down, so mixing a little bit of that white on top of that yellow also gave a beautiful dreamy color that I quite love. The next prompt is adding the elements that form the 1, 2, 3 swap. So you need to find 1 of something, 2 of something, and 3 of something. And I think this is why I procrastinated during my whole preparation period, is because I just didn't know what I was going to add 1 of and 2 of and 3 of. So then I remembered that I had these paper dolls from Tim Holtz, and I wondered if they came in 2s and 3s, and they actually did. So I sat down and had a little play and a little look, and I tried to make some kind of sense and some kind of story. So I ended up, as you sit and play with stuff, a story comes to mind always. And so I ended up choosing this pretty girl, and I love how she's holding a book. And I thought, well, maybe we'll make it look like this is her now, and she's thinking about days gone by. So this is a picture with her and her best friend at school, and then the one on the top right is a picture of her with her brothers when they were young. And I then thought, well, I'm going to call this piece Then and Now. And it kind of gave me a little bit of a sad feeling as well. It almost felt like she was now all alone. So I'm not sure what her story is yet. I'm not sure if she lost her brothers in a war, or if she's gone to school and she's now studying to be a nurse, or I don't know. I didn't go that far, but I really loved this whole vibe. And so I stuck them down with PVA glue, but then I decided to put the gel medium on top so that they're good and stuck, and that none of the colors transfer onto them. If so, you could just easily wipe it down. I then go back in with my yellow distress crayon, and I create just a little bit of a border around them. I'm not quite sure at this stage whether the yellow was the right color to use. I didn't want to go for anything dark at this stage just yet, because I am gonna create a vignette around the entire art page. But I'm happy with the yellow. I seem to be drawn to yellow these days. So I tried to do a little bit of the gray around the edges, and the gray kind of doesn't add anything. So I need to go for a little bit of a darker color. This is my distress crayon. This is palette number 5, I think. I'll put the details down below. This is all the dark colors, and I love them. They're so fantastic. This is one of the lighter browns, and after I'm done, I realize it's not dark enough, and I do go back in with the black, but I do love the color that the brown adds. And you see it layered. You see a little bit of the gray, and you see a little bit of the black, and you see a little bit of the brown as well when the black comes in. So it's actually, multi-layered and multicolored as well. I really love how it looks. I'm just outlining the pieces of text with the gray, and I've decided to put a little bit of the brown around her to try to fade out that yellow color. The yellow makes it look really old and quite antique-y. So then I go in with just a little bit of white, create those circles just to break up some of that yellow and that brown. Obviously decide that there's not enough yellow, so I reach for these fire bursts, or these fireworks that I received from one of Auntie Vera's kids. And I love the yellow. I love the drippage, actually. I think that's what I was looking for. It looked too neat. And for some reason, I decided I needed red. And like I said earlier, when I add red, I feel like blood has happened. I'm not sure why, and I really don't like that dripping coming down. It's as if the girl and her friend had been murdered. Just not good. So I take away the drip, and that feels so much better. I like that it's the dark red up the top there, but I love the yellow drip. It's just really interesting. The next thing I do is I go for these chipboard alphabet stickers, and I choose the letters that spell out then and now. And I don't like that aqua color. I mean, these things were on clearance for like 40 cents, so I bought them anyway, and I decided that I would color them. So I colored them in with ink, and then I put the distress crayon on top for good measure, and it looks really vintage. I like how it looks now. It's really coming together, and I know the look that I'm going for. So I'm adding more brown to cover up some of the yellow. The girls look like they're floating. There's nothing to ground them. So I grabbed this little piece of hessian left over from one of Auntie Vera's kits from last year, and I put a little bit of the hessian underneath them, and instantly it makes all the difference in the world. They do look grounded. They don't look like they're floating for no reason on the page. Just putting it down with my palette knife and a little bit of gel medium. So here comes that border. I'm using the black soot in the distress crayon, and I'm feathering it so that it looks like it's looking in, if you know what I mean. Like, it's not just so dark. I need that graded color, a little bit of gray, a little bit of black, and it mixes in with the previous brown that I put in, which I really like. And I go back and I darken the edges so it looks really neat. I like this vignette look. Last of all, it's time to tell the story, and these Tim Holtz stickers tell the story so beautifully. So for the picture with the three of them standing at the top there, I've put all the beautiful stars of the sky, and then for the picture of the two girls, I put the loveliest things. And then for the single girl, I put remind me of the happiness. I found a little bit that says of earlier days, but I actually took that off to add the sentiment in memory of earlier days below the now. And I think that that looks better. So altogether it reads, all the beautiful stars of the sky, the loveliest things remind me of the happiness in memories of earlier days. So I quite love this look, and I think it's missing something. I think it still looks a little bit maybe too blended. Like there's nothing, it needs a little bit of white, I felt. So I went back in with the Punchinella, and now the Punchinella pattern looks really good. It breaks up some of the yellow on brown on black, and I love it. This finished it off beautifully for me. And then I decided that I wanted to do one more thing. Always never enough. I wanted to just add the actual numbers 1, 2, and 3. And so I colored them in with that vintage sepia color ink, but then I do go back and add straight ink. I use the Festive Berries ink on top of it so that it soaks into it really nicely. And so I kind of faff about with that for a little while, but essentially my art page is done, and I'm really happy with how it looks and the story that it tells, and I'm happy that I've done it so I can send it to my partner. So thank you so much for joining me, you guys. I hope you enjoyed this, and I think I'm seeing a style in my artwork. I tend to do the same things over and over again, which may or may not be a good thing. I always like to change things up, so I will be joining a few more swaps in the future that push me to make a little bit of different art and yeah, learn a few different techniques and incorporate it into my own style. So thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you in my next video.